everybody, welcome back to History Student Reacts. Today we'll be watching HBO's Rome Episode 8, Caesarion. So, last time was a monumental episode. We saw Pompey's defeat at the hands of Caesar. Pompey was forced to retreat, and then as he arrived in Egypt, he was assassinated. Now the terms of the game have completely changed. Pompey's gone. Some of the Pompeian senators still remain to oppose Caesar, but others, including Cicero and Brutus, have gone back to Caesar, seeking to, at the very least, sign a truce or join up with him. I guess we'll have to see how all of that goes. Now, if you guys would like to see the full unedited reaction, which I can't put on YouTube due to copyright reasons, then please check out my Patreon. It is linked in the description below. And if you're watching this on Patreon, thank you so much for all of the support. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's jump right into this reaction. Wow. Brutus meeting up with Servilia. Once again, Brutus, who made a principled choice not to stick with Caesar, not to continue living his luxurious life in Rome, but to flee and join the Pompeians and fight back to save the Republic. Now all of that is done. He's returned, though the relationship between Servilia and Caesar has soured significantly since the last time they saw each other, so I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. I mean, at the very least, we do have confirmation that Caesar genuinely does have a bond with Brutus. I remember back in the early episodes saying, I think Caesar's just giving Brutus a bit of leniency because of his relationship with Servilia, but even after that has been cut off, Caesar, who has that personal relationship with Brutus, still sees him very favorably.
The following noblemen returning from Greece have received pardon of Caesar and must not be harmed. Publius Servilius Casca, Marcus Tullius Cicero, Gaius Cassius Longinus, and Marcus Junius Brutus. The traitor Pompey has fled to Egypt. Glorious Caesar follows.
Well, yeah, that is true, but I guess they don't yet know what has happened to Pompey. Hey, burritos. And Polo, our boys, somehow always manage to stay just enough out of trouble to survive and keep their positions remarkably. Now we're getting a look at Egypt of this period. Now this is something I don't know much about, but I'm curious to see how they depict it, right?
Behold, Ptolemy.
I mean, it already looks quite a bit different from the Roman culture that we've been shown.
He of the two ladies, he of sedge and bee. Behold, Ptolemy, son of Ra, Ptolemy the divine. Greetings.
And of course, Ptolemy, we're talking about Ptolemaic Egypt, which was a Hellenistic state, aka a Greek state that ruled over Egypt during this time period. That I suppose at this point had been ruling for a couple hundred years. Like I said, I don't know too much about Ptolemaic Egypt in particular, but now we get to see Caesar's interactions.
How goes your preparation for war?
War? We have no war prepared.
I'm misinformed then. I was told the sister of the mighty lion disputes his right to the throne.
Do not speak of her. I piss on her. I shit on her.
It is true, our beloved princess has listened to ill counsel and raised some absurd claim. But she has no support. None but traitors and barbarians.
She is soon to gather more support, for she, Cleopatra, for those that don't know, is quite a persuasive individual.
What was that name?
Delagos of Pergamum. He can raise 10 legions.
Delagos of Pergamum can raise 10 legions for her.
A petty bandit. I assure you, you have no problem, no fears at all about Cleopatra.
Where is she?
Well, nobody knows. Somewhere in the south, we believe.
He lies. They have her.
This dispute between you both must end. Rome desires Egypt be at peace.
And we're already getting a bit of a look at the relationship between Egypt and Rome at this point. Now, that relationship will evolve over time. But even at this point, Rome holds a lot of power and influence over Egypt. Now, down the line, Rome will even more directly control Egyptian affairs. But even at this point, Rome has a serious amount of influence over the politics here.
We have a gift for you, glorious excellency,
Oh my.
that we think you will be very pleased with.
I think I know what they're about to show him. And I'm very curious how this show depicts Caesar's reaction. Very curious. There it is. The head of the great Pompey Magnus.
We were going to make him a body, and moving arms and legs, and do a mime show with real animals and everything.
Silence! Shame on the house of Ptolemies for such barbarity. Shame.
Mm-hmm.
You are enemies.
He was a consul of Rome! A consul of Rome. To die in this sordid way. Quartered like some low thief.
Brilliant! Alright, the scene isn't over, but fantastic! This is very true to history. I'm very glad they've done it this way. Caesar was extremely unhappy when he was shown Pompey's severed head. Now, of course, we can only look at the sources we have, and we have to try and extrapolate the truth from those sources. Caesar was very unhappy. For this stated reason, he was displeased that a consul of Rome had been treated and murdered in this way. I think another reason behind Caesar's displeasure was also that, as we've seen, he wanted to be magnanimous, right? He wanted to bring all of his enemies back into the fold, show that he was merciful, and that he could be the legitimate ruler of Rome. Now that Pompey's dead, Caesar doesn't have the opportunity to give him that mercy. And then, I think there's two other things. One, the two men did have a personal relationship. Now, it's up to you to sort of decide if you think that played a role in this. We really don't know. And then there's also sort of the PR reasons, in that it probably would have been a much better look for Caesar to come back with Pompey alive, reconciled. Now, would that have been possible? I'm not quite sure, but I think a lot of the Roman people, and especially the Roman senators, would have liked that a lot. So, I'm glad they're depicting Caesar's reaction in this way, because this is his accurate reaction, and those are some of the factors that might have played a role in why he reacted this way. But the main factor we know of is the one that's being stated right here. He was just displeased that someone in such a position, someone like Pompey, had been treated in this manner.
Shame. Where is the rest of him?
He has been cremated. With all proper funeral rites, of course. With all decorum.
I shall return tomorrow, at which time you will give me the man that took Pompey's life.
These two great rivals, enemies, it comes to an end. Pompey dies without Caesar even there, and Caesar is not at all pleased. Quite the end to that relationship.
Captain says the wind is fair.
Good.
We can leave whenever you like.
You will take half the men, return to Rome immediately. You shall have the honor of announcing Pompey's death. I shall follow you when I've settled things here.
Settled things. Settled what things?
Civil.
Now that is a good question to ask. Settled what things, Caesar? You don't think you should be returning to Rome to handle business there? You've just finished this civil war. Well, actually, there are still active Pompeians out there, but you have finished the main leg of this civil war. You don't want to return back to the capital city? Oh no! Caesar has some business to conduct in Egypt, apparently.
War is in the air. It must be prevented.
Why? Let the wretches fight it out.
War will disrupt the grain supply. Without Egyptian grain, Rome goes hungry.
This is a point, and a true point. I mean, look, Caesar has some interest in Egypt, and that interest will develop over time, but this is an accurate point. Egypt was a massive producer of grain. It will gain the nickname breadbasket of the Roman Empire. Once upon a time, the breadbasket of the much smaller Roman Republic was Sicily, but now Egypt produces a lot of that grain, and the more control Rome has over Egypt, the more control it has over that grain supply. So this is definitely a legitimate reason to sort of have a Roman hand steering the affairs of the Egyptian state.
You seem to forget that our war is not over yet. Cato and Scipio are still at large. Given time,
Yep.
they will raise another army.
And when they do, I shall crush them.
I'm glad you're so confident. Some would call it hubris.
It's only hubris if I fail.
We have some interesting points being made. I mean, that is true coming from Caesar. Really, it is only hubris if one fails, but I think Mark Antony's pointing out something very true here. You're getting a bit ahead of yourself, man. And that's what I was implying earlier with Caesar. You're not returning back to Rome. Caesar, you have other issues to deal with. Are you getting a little too big for your britches? You know, that ego's getting inflated a little bit? I don't know. But you do have pressing matters to attend to, and yet you would rather stay in Egypt and handle affairs here. We'll see how this whole thing plays out, but this is something that I thought of and stated when we talked about the real history surrounding Caesar's time in Egypt. Really? You're going to stay in Egypt for this amount of time and deal with things here? It also gets a little bit out of hand, so I think these are fair things being said by Mark Antony.
Remember, she is a princess of ancient blood. When you find her, you will treat her with the utmost respect. You must obey her in all things within reason.
Understood, sir.
I'm counting on you, Venus.
And they're sending for Remus.
You have something to say.
Regarding Pompey Magnus, I wish to apologize. It was my actions that brought him here to this end. If I had done my duty...
Indeed. Dismiss.
Yeah, I mean, once again, it's pretty ridiculous that Pillow and Varenus keep getting these positions, even after all the stuff that they've done wrong. Varenus in particular, every time he stands up for his principles, he gets himself into a lot of trouble. And now he's being sent to find Cleopatra, but, you know, he has the gods on his side, aka, as some of you have pointed out, the writers of the show. And I get it, you know, they want to keep the plot lines moving, they want to keep all our characters interacting, but it is funny to see just Pillow and Varenus being placed in all of these important historical moments, like, they were here, they were here, they were here. But, you know, we continue.
In the meantime, these instruments tabulate the money that was borrowed by His Majesty's illustrious father, Ptolemy XII. In the name of the Republic, I have come to collect.
17,000 drachma.
17. Sir. 4, perhaps.
The tabulation includes all monies borrowed from Pompey and other agents of the Republic, now unable to collect.
That is not just.
Post-mortem interests of this type are legally entailed to the presiding consul, i.e. Gaius Julius Caesar. It's law.
Roman law.
Is there some other form of law? You wretched woman.
This is okay, this is great. First off, I think we are being shown a little bit of Caesar's inflated ego. Sure, Rome does have a lot of control over Egypt. It is far more powerful than the Egyptian state of this era, but Caesar is still really putting himself out there. You know, he's putting himself in danger by doing this, and he is getting close to overstepping his bounds. But we're also getting a great look at just this Roman chauvinism that really characterized Rome's interactions with other peoples and other states when Caesar says, you know, is there any other law? Roman law is the only law. This is a very Roman attitude. Rome saw themselves as the one and only civilized culture. Roman law was the one and only law that should be obeyed by all of these other barbarian peoples, including, in this case, Egypt. And Egypt is a state with a long history, a lot of culture, very impressive, but still they're interacting with the Roman, and Romans see themselves as on the top. So, you know, we're getting a good look at that general Roman attitude, and also maybe Caesar being a little too risky with his behavior. I guess we'll see.
1,000 apologies. Forgive us.
There. There's for your payment.
So sorry.
His Majesty forgets he's a vassal to Rome.
Yeah.
Vassal? Vassal? I am no vassal. I am king.
Sit down! Thank you. When can I expect payment?
Your Honor, we have little enough ready coin for our own needs. Our tax farmers have not been working as they should because
Because?
Cleopatra's foolishness has stirred unrest in some parts. Nothing serious.
Oh, really?
Well, I do not wish to appear unreasonable. I will accept 10,000 drachma.
Even that amount will take many days to collect.
In that case, I shall have ample time to adjudicate your dispute with Princess Cleopatra.
Excellent notion. But alas, who knows where Princess Cleopatra is?
Now, do not worry about that. I shall find her.
Great, so great. You see Caesar really asserting himself and asserting Roman control of this situation. Once again, a little bit dangerous, but Rome does have the upper hand here, and Egypt does owe Rome. Egypt is, in many ways at this point, a vassal to Rome. Like I said, not quite as directly as they will be in the future, but still. And now Caesar's basically coming to enforce Roman power. but you still have to be careful. You know, Egypt is still a powerful state of this era. You don't want to get yourself in trouble because, of course, the might of Rome can resist the Ptolemaic Egyptian state, of course, but, you know, what resources does Caesar have at hand? Not a ton at the moment. So he's really, using, Roman power, Roman reputation as a battering ram at the moment.
Blood and fire. It's as hot as Vulcan's dick. What a dump. Gibbo gods must be right wasters to make a place like this.
Don't speak ill of the gods in their own country.
Dare I? I've seen their gods. Titus Fuller isn't scared of any bastard with a dog's head on him.
Or fool you. These gods are old and powerful. Egypt was a great nation long before Rome.
I love that we have these two to give us some of the information about what we're seeing, but also the opinions of different Roman people. We see, once again, Pullo doesn't really care about much. He doesn't hold much in high value, but Varenus has a respect for the history and the culture, and we also see this idea that Varenus clearly believes in some way or another that the Egyptian gods are real or significant. And this was absolutely true. Of course, the Romans had their own pantheon, but as they expanded and interacted with other peoples, they would often take the gods of other peoples and just merge them with their own pantheon. And Varenus is sort of showing us that perspective. He's also, I think, about to give us a bit of a spiel on Egyptian history as compared to Roman history, which is what I was talking a little bit about earlier.
Was it? Mumped it up now then, haven't they? Why are we here anyhow?
Waiting.
Yeah, I know we're waiting, but for who?
I'll know when I see them.
Be like that.
Vassal, he says. Barbarian scum.
That's great. That's great. And now we're getting the Egyptian perspective, because remember, as Varenus just mentioned, Egypt is a country with a history much longer than Rome's. They have their own culture, their own traditions. They see themselves as a civilized people, and, others as barbarians. They have sort of a similar perspective to the Romans. Big, powerful empires often do. They see themselves as the most civilized people, and everyone else as, in some way or another, less civilized. And we see the Egyptian perspective in this instance. It's just that at this point in time, Egypt has fallen a bit from its height, and Rome holds the upper hand. Though, like I said, Egypt is not completely powerless. Young Ptolemy here, is not completely powerless.
We do not pay him. He will put Cleopatra on the throne.
If he could find her.
He is a resourceful man.
He will find her. She should have died when we first caught her. Now it must be done. She must die.
I agree. My men could be with her by nightfall.
Cleopatra, Queen Majesty, Hutu asks to speak with you.
All right, here we have Cleopatra.
Slap me. Night or day? Night.
He may enter.
I'm interested to see the depiction of Cleopatra. I don't know as much about her as I do about many other figures of Roman history. And also, Cleopatra is a character who there's been a lot of speculation over her for many, many years. I mean, while she was alive and immediately afterwards, there was lots of speculation about her character, what she was like, what she did, and ever since then. So I think it's a little difficult to get a read on what she was actually like. She's one of those types of characters from history. There's a lot of chatter, a lot of controversy, I guess you could say, on, what type of person she really was. So I think it's sort of difficult for me to assess how accurate or authentic a depiction of her actually is. But, there are some things about her that we know, and I'm still interested to see sort of what angle they're coming at her from, right? How they intend to depict her in this show.
Say your words.
Brebath min. Janach miwe.
I think she's about to get an assist from Varenus and or Bullo. Now, obviously, Caesar allied with Cleopatra and more in real life, but I do not believe that Roman soldiers saved Cleopatra from this tight a pinch in real life. This is not how it went down.
Attack, Caesar. Are you serious?
Why not? He only has a few hundred men with him. How many men could you rally? You would be the liberator of Egypt.
And this is a fair thing to consider. Like I said, and like they just mentioned, what resources does Caesar have at hand? He does not have that many men. He sent away most of his men back to Rome. He can't necessarily afford to drag his troops away from other regions. He has other things to worry about. He has to keep control over his territory. He has men like Cato to worry about. And so Caesar is kind of stuck. He's inserted himself into this situation without many men or resources close at hand. He is actually in a pretty risky spot. Now, he's betting that the name of Rome and his own reputation will be enough to get him out of this, right? They wouldn't dare attack him. He is the great Gaius Julius Caesar representing the great Roman Republic. But now that they're considering what they might do, Caesar's position is actually not that strong at the moment.
Your name would live forever.
My mortal flesh should be less fortunate. Rome does not forget an injury.
Right.
Rome.
Still might be a short-sighted idea, even if they manage to defeat Caesar. And that is still a big if. They're going to have to deal with the wrath of the Roman Empire in the longer term.
Ptolemy the Waterbringer, here the two ladies, here Sejun B, King of Kings, son of Ra, informs his most grand honor, etc., that him who bears his message is him that killed Pompey.
Oh, how about that? Well, there you go. A lot of head severing, but when you're in the ancient world, you want proof that you've murdered somebody. Well, you cut their head off and display it everywhere.
He's handsome enough. Good, strong chin. Looks like a mean old man to me. More. She will look like a reptile when she arrives in Alexandria.
I will say, it hasn't necessarily been the most favorable depiction of Cleopatra so far, but we haven't seen much of her, right? We have yet to see her really interact with anybody, so I'm still reserving judgment. I feel like I haven't quite gotten a full look at this depiction of her, and like I said, I'll reserve judgment for a bit later.
Weak, I call it.
But I would point out that Cleopatra was
Weak am I?
cunning,
She knows how to beat us ladies
smart,
up, but she can't
strong.
throw away that pipe. And she knows it.
Insolent dwarf. You know nothing.
I would say any depiction of Cleopatra that doesn't include those characteristics, I wouldn't necessarily call authentic. Now, there's, always been a lot of speculation over her motives. A lot of people haven't necessarily liked her. I think a lot of it has been unfair, but I think everybody can agree that in many ways, like I said, she was cunning, smart, strong. She definitely knew how to get her way, how to control the situation. She was savvy politically. So, like I'm saying, different depictions can show different things, but I would hope that any depiction of Cleopatra would include those characteristics. I guess we'll see.
Throw it out. Throw it out.
I mean, so far she's just been sort of lounging around, but like I said, that very well could change. We haven't seen much of her yet, so yeah.
That Jippo princess. Now that's good cunning.
Father's people wrote
Oh,
that Alexander.
my.
You can't speak of it like that.
Yeah, Pullo, irreverent as always, no respect, and Varenas comes in with the history and the respect and all that sort of business, and yeah, he's exactly right. I mean, this is where Ptolemaic Egypt emerged from. Alexander, I mean, you think of Alexander's great empire after he died, and it split up. Well, we see a lot of the states of the ancient world forming, one of the more prominent of which was Ptolemaic Egypt.
She is, though. And she wants me badly. Should have seen her when I done that Nubian. Wet as October.
Pullo, look at me. She is a princess of royal blood. You touch her, you die.
I'm not stupid. Just saying she wants me.
Not stupid, huh? Okay, we'll see.
My womb is between the flood. A child would come as sure as spring.
Come. You, come.
What's going on here?
Oh, so red.
Highness, how can I be of service?
Oh, God.
Leather. Olives. Not so bad.
I think I know where this is going. I guess we'll see. Look, I mean, Cleopatra has certainly been described as a seductress, and that was probably true on some level. I mean, for her to achieve her goals, one of the things she needed to do was manipulate a lot of these powerful men, and that is what she did. This depiction of her seems a little bit, I don't know what you'd call it, starry-eyed, sex-crazed? I don't know. I guess we'll see. I guess we'll see what's about to happen with Varenas as well.
He will do.
Majesty commands you will enter her.
I do not understand.
You have coitus with her.
You have it wrong. Coitus means to make babies.
Exact so. Make babies.
Send Pullo in.
Don't be scared.
I ask forgiveness of your majesty, but I cannot comply.
Okay,
I'm no
good.
slave to be commanded so. With all respect.
He refuses.
Just stand your ground, my man. Stand your ground. You've got a wife back home. You've stayed faithful this long. Although I know this is more complicated than that. Now, he's supposed to obey everything she says, though I think Caesar said within reason. So, you know, I guess we'll see how this goes. Just send Puluit. He's perfectly willing.
This insect refuses me.
You dare refuse the daughter of a sun god?
Hello. Report immediately to Princess Cleopatra and do as she says.
Hey?
You heard. What's going on? Just go.
Legionary Titus Polo, reporting for duty, Mom.
Okay. This shall not be seen on the YouTube. Yeah, so once again, I don't know. They've gone with a particular depiction of Cleopatra, right? Like I said, I guess seductress would be a fair label. And I don't know enough about her to really judge, and once again, it's all very speculative. But this is one of those depictions of Cleopatra that we've seen throughout history as, like I said, sort of a sex-craved Eastern seductress. That seems to be what they're going for here.
Princess Cleopatra, sir, daughter of the two Rams, mistress of Sedge and Bee.
Now, I think there is truth to that, the whole smuggled in a bag. But, and once again, I'm trying to remember, I believe the actual story, it was far more due to Cleopatra's initiative than it was the initiative of the Romans.
Is something wrong, little husband? How funny you look in father's chair.
I never wanted to harm you.
Of course you didn't.
Oh my. And now we see the effect of Caesar's meddling in this situation. I'm sure a lot of you also noticed little husband, father's chair. Yes, there was, as in some monarchies throughout history, a rather high degree of incest in this dynasty. That's how they did things. Oh my, more heads upon pikes. Both of them have been piked. And, you know, I mean, I'm not sure how much they're going to depict it in this show, but we see the crowd gathering. You know, especially as time goes on, you think that this crowd may not be so happy about the Romans inserting themselves so directly into Egyptian politics, right? I mean, we understand on a grander geopolitical level the power that Rome has over Egypt, economically, politically, militarily, but to the dynasty, apart from Cleopatra, who is on Caesar's good side, to their allies, but to the rest of the dynasty, to Ptolemy, to many of the people of Alexandria, they do not like all of this Roman meddling in their affairs, and they may begin to get pretty unhappy, very displeased with Caesar and his actions. I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see how the show sort of depicts this.
Get in formation!
But, I mean, I think that is part of what they're implying when they're showing, you know, the crowd forming and the door being barricaded and all that sort of stuff.
And you, Pulo.
Good advice, no doubt. If I wanted to control Egypt.
Of course you do. Why else are you here? And why save me so heroically from death? If not to use me as your puppet queen.
Yeah. I mean, obviously true. Though, once again, and there is speculation about this, it's not entirely clear, but I do believe Cleopatra came to Caesar more on her own initiative than it was that she was rescued by Romans and brought to him. You know, she came to him in order to basically gain his support so she could take her throne back, right? This is depicting it a little bit differently, but, you know, that observation is accurate. Caesar wants control, and he thinks that he can have control by using Cleopatra as a puppet, potentially. I guess we'll see if she can work around that.
Do you dislike the notion?
My wishes are immaterial. You redeemed me from captivity. I am your slave.
Are you well? Well enough. I do not sleep.
Wow, talk about a bit of juxtaposition. We've been so Egypt-focused this whole episode, and now we cut right back to Rome with Brutus, who we did see earlier in the episode, and Cicero. Let's see what they're up to.
I write very bad poetry through the night. In the morning, I give it to the cook to stoke the kitchen fire. It's a form of magic. My ill conscience is transformed into roast birds and pastries.
You should have no ill conscience. We only did what we had to do.
No doubt Saturn said something of the sort after eating his children.
The question is, if Caesar does not return from Egypt.
Oh, Caesar has escaped tighter traps than this.
He has been besieging Alexandria the better part of a year.
Oh, wow.
Perhaps his luck has run out.
Okay. So, are we just cutting forward then? Because, yes, this is absolutely what went down. I'm not entirely sure how much time had passed while we were seeing Caesar in Egypt. I think this is showing us a little bit in the future. But they say Caesar had escaped from tougher situations than that, and that may be true, but I gotta be honest, Caesar's time in Egypt ended up being a really sticky situation. You know, he ended up in a lot of trouble, and you could potentially imagine a situation where he didn't make it out. Like, it was really bad at a certain point.
Wow. What fools we shall look. We have kissed the feet of a dead man.
With Caesar dead, that bastard Mark Antony will be unleashed to do as he wants.
Very likely. But it is no concern of mine. I am done with politics.
Self-pity is all very well. I'm not unashamed myself. But we are still senators. We have responsibilities.
I remind you, we swore an oath of loyalty.
To Caesar, not to Antony. Cato and Scipio have raised an army in Numidia. If we were to communicate with them, we might.
Very interesting. We see Cicero trying to play both sides a little bit. You know, and this is sort of tricky because this is showing us conversations that, of course, we have no historical record of, and we can only imagine if Cicero and Brutus would have been talking about such things at such a time. I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure Cicero was always thinking about every possible outcome. Caesar's been stuck in Egypt for a while, and his representative, Mark Antony, is left in Rome, but Mark Antony is not nearly as tactful as Caesar. I'm still not sure that Cicero would seriously be considering going back to the Pompeians. I think he would more be considering building his own power base in Rome.
Mike, this is Cicero. Stranger, I was just now thinking of you. That I've received some happy news, and my first thought,
was to come and tell you to. And here you are. What a coincidence. It's amusing how often that happens, eh? I was walking across the forum and thinking of this particular woman who should arrive right in front of me, but the thing herself. Savage little Spanish creature. Hair down to her ass. Everyone misjudges me, you know. I'm a merciful man. I know that's not my reputation, but I am.
I mean, that's not your reputation, because you are not a merciful man. Caesar is a merciful man. He really is. Caesar wants to bring everybody back under his control, very notably, as long as it's under his control, but he does want to bring everybody back, make allies of his old enemies, so that he can rule legitimately. Mark Antony is far more concerned with personally enriching himself, regardless of the enemies he may be making. So, no, Mark Antony is not a merciful man. He will prove that, well, several times in his future.
Now, everyone's entitled to a few mistakes. Gods know, I made one or two myself. I've done things I'm ashamed to think of.
We are all of us imperfect in our way.
Exactly. We are all of us imperfect. Give me your hands, Brother Cicero.
I'm interested what point Mark Antony is going to make here, because whenever Mark Antony was left alone without the supervision of Caesar, and this is what I was talking about earlier in the series, when Caesar went off to Greece and Mark Antony was left alone, Mark Antony was very prone to throw his weight around, right? Establish himself, take what he wanted. So I'm curious what is being done here.
With all my heart, I forgive you.
I don't know what you mean.
Nothing escapes me.
Oh.
If a pigeon dies on the Aventine, I hear of it.
He's throwing his weight around, exactly.
If I ever again hear your name connected with murmurs of treachery, I will cut off these soft, pink hands and nail them to the Senate door.
Yep. I mean, this is Mark Antony's way of doing things. Very different from Caesar. Very different. We've seen how Caesar handles his enemies. Very magnanimously, you know, bringing everybody, oh, come on, everybody, come back. Oh, it's all forgiven. And if he does want to handle some bit of treachery, he does it quietly, behind the scenes, or he has a private, subtle conversation. That is not Mark Antony's way of doing things.
Antony? You said you had happy news to tell us.
Oh, yes. Of course. A courier came from Alexandria. Caesar has lifted the siege and massacred the armies of Ptolemy.
Wow, okay, so we did do a big time skip. They showed us the beginning of the mobs forming in Alexandria, Ptolemy mobilizing his men to fight back against Cleopatra and Caesar. Then we basically skipped forward through the siege, which was really one of Caesar's lowest moments. Truly terrible, but I guess we're not going to see it in this show. And bing bang bong, Egypt's done with, and I assume we're going to be seeing Caesar heading back sometime soon-ish.
He is safe and sound, and master of all Egypt. A man is a damn prodigy, eh?
You could say that. Though I really think Caesar's luck got him out of the whole Egyptian debacle, to be honest with you. There's their little baby, Caesarion. Is there, I don't know, an implication being made there? I mean, Pillow had slept with Cleopatra soon before she met Caesar. I don't know. I mean, there was certainly speculation about Caesarion in real history, and in the long term, Caesarion will not be Caesar's heir. He will select somebody else, an adoptive son, who I'm wondering when we'll cut back to him, actually, but I don't know. Very interesting episode, I'll say that much. Probably not my favorite episode ever, to be honest. But interesting. We certainly saw some interesting stuff, and I'm excited for the story to continue. I'm really excited to see where we're going next, right? So yeah, I had a good time with this one. If you guys did, then please leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, which is linked down below if you would like to see the full reaction. If you're watching on the Patreon, thank you so much for all the support, guys. I really, really appreciate it. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, I hope you guys are having a good day today, and I will see you all again next time. Goodbye.